here at the conference,
Right.
and I do have this product that I want to give away because, in all seriousness, you're doing a really incredible thing.
Thanks, Jared.
And I'm a fan of yours. I know I see you in the office.
I'm a fan.
Yeah, no, you do.
Thanks.
And
Thanks.
if you work in special needs ministry, this is something that we want to give away to you. And I know that this is something sort of a labor of love for you.
Yeah, it is. It's like a 2-year process. I mean, you want me to talk about it a little bit?
I'd love for you to
you want me to talk about it? Okay.
And I'm going to give it away. Is that all right?
Oh, yeah, give it away. Surviving to Thriving. It is, I did the workshop, well, yesterday, but I also did it last year for Orange, and I came up with 50 ideas for it. We had 50 products, 50 techniques, ways to include a kid that's otherwise kind of a hard kid to include in children's ministry. And a lot of times these are kids that have autism, they're on the spectrum, or maybe they have ADHD, or maybe they have a hard home life. Whatever it is, it's sort of, I kind of come up with this scenario, which is actually a true scenario, that I experienced in children's ministry of a child that was just really hard to include and accommodate. And we came up with 50 tricks and tools to help him have a successful experience. And then, by the way, I had a successful experience, and it was less stressful for me and for him, and he learned about Jesus. So anyway, it's fast-paced, but that is what we took that workshop and then broke it up and put it into a video so that churches could show it as a training tool for all of their children's ministry volunteers, because whether you have identified kids with special needs in your ministry or not, you have children who have these issues or need help being included or need help being wrangled and managed, and that's why we produced this video.
Well, I'm going to give it away. Hit us up, #OC online. What's your Twitter handle?
My Twitter is Amy Fenton Lee.
Amy Fenton Lee.
I have a whole thing, yeah, Amy Fenton Lee. I actually have two, or Special Needs Kidmin, which is SP Needs Kidmin, either one. So I have two.
So hit us up, #OC online. Follow Amy Lee. Now, tell me sort of your origin in the special needs ministry. Where did this sort of come from for you?
Well, the bottom line is God has called me into this, I guess, because there's no real good explanation. I was doing writing for a ministry, actually a women's ministry publication 4 years ago, and had written an article on relational etiquette to people in crisis. And I talked about, I coached people on what to say, what not to say when a woman is going through a hard time. For example, infertility, infidelity, divorce, death. And the editor came to me and she said, you know, a similar topic is moms who have just received a special needs diagnosis for their child. And so many of us don't know what to say to them. Would you mind writing an article from a Christian perspective on how to support and love a mother who's receiving a special needs diagnosis for their child? And in the course of doing the research for that article, I realized that they were missing church. They were missing church, and that the church was not doing a great job of including them, the family or the child with special needs. And it just, out of that, a passion was developed. And ironically, at the very same time I was writing that article, I had a child in my ministry who I call Jake, and I'm a lifelong children's ministry volunteer. I had a child who it turned out was on the autism spectrum. The mother did not tell us until later, but he was a challenge in our typical setting. And it was, I realized that we didn't know how to handle Jake's. We didn't know what to do with him, and that's where I decided to sort of change my focus, change my writing over to children's ministry specifically, and to help with special needs inclusion.
Why do you think churches have a hard time coming around special needs ministry? Why do you think oftentimes churches... It's amazing. I mean, you read the words of Jesus and you think compassion, mercy, and yet so often at the church we neglect the people that we really need to be helping.
Well, I think there's two reasons. First of all, we're all human beings and we avoid things that are messy, okay? And when you reach into the life of a family impacted by special needs, it's not easy, okay? And they're dealing with hard questions. You know, how come this happened to me? You know, they're in the middle of asking hard questions. At the same time, they have high physical needs. They're not getting a lot of sleep. And, you know, I think it's sometimes as humans, we're scared to get involved. We're going, I'm just trying to handle what's going on in my life. I can't handle somebody else's life. And so the messiness is scary. The second part is that, you know, I think the whole special needs world is there's fear. You know, here, IEP, Individualized Education Plan. Oh my goodness, they have that at school. Am I going to have to implement that at church? And they start worrying. We start going, oh, there's special plans at school. How would we do that at church? Hey, I am just an underpaid church staff person or unpaid volunteer. Ooh, not my thing. I don't even know how to make that work in the church setting. So we hear things and we get scared by it because it's not easy. But the reality is it's easier than people just need help in an easy way. There's ways to be equipped, and that's where I feel called to kind of be a translator from special needs world to the regular good-hearted children's ministry leader who's like, this feels intimidating. Okay, let's break it down. Let's make it easy. But it feels intimidating is the short answer.
One of the things I appreciate about you, Amy, and actually at our church, a lot of churches where there are special needs ministries, the people that do special needs ministry have so much joy. I mean, there's just so much passion, and it's like Reggie was saying in the opening session, this isn't something they signed up for, it's something they feel called to. And I just, the passion and enthusiasm you have for this is very, very cool, because I know a lot of high school volunteers that feel just like the treasury of going through and volunteering in high school ministry, but just to have passion for this is...
It's just so fulfilling, though, when you see... it doesn't take much encouragement. It doesn't take much to show a family that you care about them. I mean, one of the things that Meaghan Wall is going to be on here talking in a minute, but she does is she has a wall of pictures that she posts in the ministry area, of pictures of all the children who are impacted by special needs that they post in their children's ministry area. And those families arrive and they feel loved and they feel welcomed. How hard was that to get a photographer, take a picture of children and families impacted by special needs? Those families feel encouraged. It's and how rewarding is that for Meaghan or for whoever the leader is that has those ideas to be? There's tremendous satisfaction, to be honest, in serving, and that's, I mean, from a carnal human standpoint, I have great satisfaction, and I find that to be true among special needs ministry leaders.
Yeah, it's so cool when you actually begin to participate and serve and love and pour yourself out for people. It doesn't even matter what you get back.
God blesses you. And, even in those nights that, preparing for Orange and doing a lot of the things that I do, there's nights I work late. And, at that 10:30 at night, and you're thinking, why am I doing this? And, gosh, I'm not getting enough sleep. But, God, you're going to have to carry me through this. And there's so many special needs leaders that have that. He just always does. And he blesses you in a way. You still have hardship. You do. But he blesses in a way that I just can't explain because it keeps you going.
That's very cool. Well, we have Meaghan Wall here, who you just mentioned. And we want to bring her on the program. Meaghan, hey, how you doing?
Hi.
We've never met.
We haven't. I'm
Nice,
Meaghan.
nice to meet you, Meaghan. I've heard wonderful things.
Thank you.
And do you guys work together?
Well, over the phone. Meaghan lives in Dallas. I live here in Atlanta. And you tell where you work at you tell what church you work at. She feeds me a lot of information.
Okay. She's the guru.
She's the real deal. She's in the trenches. She's the real deal.
Awesome.
I am the special needs coordinator at Stonebriar Community Church in Frisco, Texas. So we're just north of Dallas. I've been there for about five and a half years.
I have family that lives there.
Do you really?
Prosper.
Yeah, just north of us.
Just right next to you.
That's the country.
That's the country.
Prosper's the country.
They're from Chicago, so I don't know if they fit in or not. So.
But we have about 85 families that we serve on Sundays or throughout the week at our church with special needs. And so it's just a growing ministry. It's been there actually since the church started 13 years ago. Started with one child, one volunteer, a beanbag, and a boombox. That's what we say. So that's how it started, and now it's grown and developed over the years to just be the ministry that it is.
And tell them how many kids with special needs that your ministry includes.
Well, we have 85 families. Some of those families have multiple children with special needs. So, probably I would guess 90 to 100 children, birth through adults. So we go all the way up.
Okay, I have to mention this. Meaghan has a waiting list of volunteers in her ministry.
Really?
We do.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we just, we believe that we're family. And so as volunteers come in, our goal is retention. And so we just feed into those volunteers and really get them invested in the kids that they're serving. So we celebrate every little thing. We celebrate driver's license when some of our kids get a driver's license. We celebrate baptisms. We celebrate children when they're being born. We just really make it where everyone is invested in the volunteers they work with. But one thing that I do is in August, we clear the roster, and I say that you're no longer a volunteer in the special needs ministry, and if you would like to recommit for another year, sign back up. And so far, I've had one person, since I've been doing that, say, this really isn't a fit for me anymore. So I've helped them find another place to serve, but generally everyone stays with me for another year, serving within the ministry, and then throughout the year we'll get, another one here, another one there. And so we've just been able to keep our, volunteer pool full, which has been
And
a
Meaghan,
huge blessing.
but you
huge
do
blessing.
pour into your volunteers. You know, she makes a point of helping them connect on Facebook. They're connecting with each other. You know, when they, and I've gone and watched her in action in Frisco. When you walk in and you see the volunteers connecting with each other, oh, I saw on Facebook this about you this past week. How did that go? How was your test or whatever? You see them sharing community. And instead of this humongous church, which Stonebriar is, when you come and you serve in the special needs suite, that's your family, your volunteer family, the other families who are impacted by special needs. That's where you become a name and a face and a story, is when you walk in there. And Meaghan is just brilliant at bringing them together. And I say sometimes, and I hope you don't take this, the mother hen who brings them together and loves on them and just pours on them and makes them know how appreciated they are. That's why they come back.
Yeah, and they feel a part of
Absolutely. Absolutely, especially those who serve as buddies, which means that they are one-on-one with a child with special needs who's included in a typical classroom. So they know that if they're not there on Sunday, that child cannot go to class. So sometimes whenever you're serving in the nursery, you think, well, if I'm not there, they can pull in someone else who would love to rock babies for me. But this is something so specific and tailored that they know, hey, if I'm not there on Sunday, Johnny doesn't get to go to church. His parents aren't going to get to go to church. I've got to get it together and get there. So they are faithful and they are committed, and they love being needed. Our volunteers just love the fact that they are needed there.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Now, when you sit down to vision cast or just communicate the vision of special needs ministry at Stonebriar, what does that look like for you guys? What are you inviting people into? What's the big story? What do you want a volunteer in your ministry to feel? Because I think for people that are watching, they don't know where to start, and obviously I think, having a vision and a plan is sort of the place. So for you, what does that look like? Where are you taking
Well,
your volunteers?
it's, whenever I interview a volunteer, there are a couple questions I ask. The first one is, can you look at a child and honestly say that they are created perfectly in the image of Christ, just like you and I? They are not a mistake. There is nothing that the Lord did different, but they are created in the image of Christ. So if they can do that, they've passed the first test. The second one is that, do you look at these children and know that they need to know the love of Christ, and they need to hear the gospel just as much as you and I do? That they are here for a purpose. The reason they came to church is an eternal reason. Not just for respite, which is great because we provide respite. Not just for a time for mom and dad to be able to go to church and know their kids are taken care of. Not just for great rooms, because you can get all of those down the street at any agency in a typical town. But what makes a church different is that we are teaching them the gospel of Christ. We are investing in their eternal future. And we're doing it in a way that is safe for them, comfortable for them, and comforting for their parents. So as long as we're doing that, I feel like we're doing what we're called to do.
That's very cool. What would you?
Well, I just always cry when I hear her talk. I always get teary-eyed hearing her talk about that. And she's just come, this past Sunday was your Special Needs Sunday?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, where you are featured in the worship center. Do you want to talk a little? Can I ask her?
No,
we
you
need to go.
No. When somebody in a blue shirt walks in here and screams at us, that's when we have to go.
Okay, all right.
So that's it. But don't you? No, you ask her because you.
Well, she just got done talking about this, and I thought I want you to tell about your Special Needs Sunday.
Yeah, no, I'd love to hear.
Feature, and you raise, and the money that you raise. Talk about it.
Yeah, so we are blessed because our church is invested in our ministry, which is huge because I talked to so many churches that their senior pastors just aren't even invested. Our senior pastor is, and he has allowed one Sunday a year to be the focus for Special Needs Sunday. So basically we have our kids serve as the ushers and greeters. So they are handing out the bulletins, they are passing the offering plate, which in our church is a huge deal. Kids don't get to participate in church at our church just because of the way it's set up. So it's a big deal for them to get to pass the offering plate. We also have one of our kids do the special music for the morning. So this past year we had 2 children, one with autism, the other one with autism, and I believe, I can't remember his other diagnosis, but they sang in the worship service. So they're up on stage in front of 3,000 people singing and just worshiping the Lord. And then we have someone read scripture. So some of our children are up on stage reciting scripture, I should say, not reading scripture, because they have memorized it and practiced it. Then we also get to take up a special offering at the end, which provides funds for our children and families to go to Johnny and Friends Family Camp. So this year, just as a drop offering, as people left the sanctuary, we were able to collect over $44,000, which wasn't announced prior to the service. It was just announced at the beginning of the service, hey, if you have anything extra you want to drop in the plate, it will go towards the special needs families. So we are just blessed beyond measure to have the support of the church. And the families feel that. Whenever they're sitting there and their child is on stage singing and then they get a standing ovation, that's what makes a family feel like, hey, this is not only a church that I come to, this is a church home.
And her pastor, Chuck Swindoll, interviews her from the worship center. He will call her up and do an interview. I mean, you can see what a great interview she would be, and ask her specifics about the ministry, and she gets a chance to just relay what the ministry is doing from a personal standpoint. Am I saying this all correctly? I've seen the videos.
And there are videos. Is there any resources that you have that you can make available? Because I'm on Pound OC Online, which is our Twitter feed here, and we're having a lot of encouraging feedback for you. Sonny Miller saying, so inspired. This is my very hard ministry and a huge calling I feel impressed upon me. Our churches need this. A lot of people asking about this DVD. Where do I get this? Surviving to Thriving. Where do they pick it up if they're wanting to buy
Well,
it?
it's at the Orange Store. It's available online at the Orange Store. So if you go to Orange Store and you type in the search bar "Surviving to Thriving" or "Special Needs," I did it this morning. It's in. So it's at the Orange Store right now. If you go to whatisorange.org, you look over under Resources toward the right, and you'll see Orange. Orange Store. That is available there. It's available right now. If you're at the conference, if you're here, you can get it for $35 here. If you're ordering it through online and from now forward after the conference, it's $49.99.
That's very cool. And do you have any resources that you can make available to people watching, or a way to connect with you?
Well, I do have her notes from her breakouts.
Where do people get those?
They at theinclusivechurch.com.
Inclusivechurch.com.
Inclusivechurch.com. She taught several breakouts, and also I'm going to run through my Facebook feed for theinclusivechurch.com a link to another church video that they showed in their worship center. But a lot of times I have done a lot of articles on Meaghan on theinclusivechurch.com and her ministry. She's also in, I believe it's this month's issue of Children's Ministry Magazine.
Okay.
We did an article about Meaghan and her ministries. I'm the special needs columnist for Children's Ministry Magazine, and being that she's one of my favorites, she's featured.
That's cool.
So, yeah.
That's cool.
And then contact her, too.
Now, why? I feel like in the last 15, 20 years, there's been a surge in pastors, ministers, churches reaching out, doing special needs ministry, where, and I was young 20 years ago, but I don't know if this was as much of a felt need in churches. I don't know if people thought this way about pastoring. I mean, you're thinking about this sociologically, theologically, psychologically. I mean, you're bringing your A game to special needs ministry. I mean, for you, this is a passion. You're encouraging churches.
You can tell that?
Yeah, I mean, no, this is, churches, you're encouraging churches to put as much energy, resource, passion into special needs ministry as anything else that you do, and making sure that they feel that passion, that heart. Why do you think this has become an issue where there's leadership, there's passion, there's, not that there wasn't before, but why do you think
There's a huge interest right now.
There is, yeah. Well, I feel that. And
well, I think that people have realized that these kids either aren't coming to church because they're not being welcome. I mean, I could list off name after name of people who are at our church who have been turned away at the door by church after church after church, just because people are scared, like Amy talked about before I got on, not knowing what to do, not knowing how to handle a child who all of a sudden gets up and is screaming during service. How do you handle that? So I think it's becoming something that people are seeing that, hey, we can't keep turning these families away. These families need fellowship. They need encouragement. They need us. They need God more than ever, more than any other family out there. So they're thinking, there's got to be some way to do this. So people are starting to reach out. And as the numbers, the autism rate was recently released again, saying 1 in 88. When I started 5 years ago, it was 1 in 115. So as that number is getting bigger and bigger, people, I think, are realizing this isn't something that church over there can handle. Stonebriar has been doing this for 13 years, but it's not something that someone can always say, why don't you just go to Stonebriar? Because we don't have everything that they want. Our style of worship is different. teaching is different. Our church is big. Some people just don't want that. So I think churches are realizing, hey, we can't just keep sending these people to these churches that are doing it. Why don't we figure out what to do, and why don't we start doing this in our own classrooms, as small as it is? Let's do it, and let's welcome these families and make them a part.
Well, and, along the same lines, most churches have kids coming that have special needs, whether mom and dad may not even know it, but mom and dad may know it, and they may have chosen not to disclose the diagnosis. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes those are the kids that we talk about in the video that we've done that are challenging. And so we can either get ahead of this and we can prepare for it and help the volunteers be successful, or we can sit and wait for bad things to happen, frustration, volunteer fatigue. They quit. The family gets frustrated. Somebody in a moment of anger says something to mom as she comes to check out that relays to the mother, it didn't go well today. She gets her feelings hurt, justifiably so, and she leaves. So, we have a chance to get ahead of this. One more thing I want to add is that many special needs, many families impacted by special needs, they have a voice online, and they are screaming on blogs, please let us into your churches. If you will Google, anything special needs mom blog church, you will just see post after post after post of these families asking to get into churches. It's overwhelming. We're thinking about the mission field in other countries, which we should be. We have a mission field right here among us that want to be included.
Absolutely. Now, if I'm watching and I'm wondering, where do I get involved? My church doesn't do anything about, with this. What do I do? How do I begin to roll up my sleeves and get involved? What would you say?
Yeah, I would say it's easy as one volunteer, one child, one need. Anytime anyone's needing just straight information about how to do ministry, what special needs looks like, I do always send them to Amy's blog. She has the best resources on there that someone can go in and find a number of topics that would just help them kind of get their head around it. But you can't think that you have to have a special room or that you have to have specially trained workers. I mean, it just takes someone who is willing to sit with a child and maybe do something a little bit different than what's being done in the classroom. Like I mentioned when we started, it was one volunteer on a beanbag with a boombox. So everything else was going, I know, it was still called a boombox. That's how we still referred to boombox.
What year was this?
Well, I guess 13 years ago. But maybe the person who was...
Sounds like the 80s.
I know, it does, but that's what I've always been told, B,
we were
B,
playing
B.
Thriller on it.
Hey, they might have been.
Could have been, yeah.
But anyway, you don't have to have a lot. That's what I'm trying to say is it doesn't take all of this stuff. And that's what people get so worked up over.
And some of the best ministries use teens.
Yeah.
And it ends up being the vehicle for spiritual development for the teens that serve in the ministry.
Yeah, my wife's mom's church in Rockford, Illinois, they do a special needs prom. Where the Heartland, yes, exactly. Yeah. They do a special needs prom. And I was there a year or so ago, and they showed the video and the teenagers that were helping out. And I mean, just the amazing passion that they felt.
They love it. And it gives purpose. A lot of teenagers are searching for purpose.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you put them in a situation where they can be a leader, kids who didn't feel like they could be a leader before, and they're given a chance to rise to the occasion. They do over and over again.
Absolutely.
I mean, so many good stories of churches thinking, well, I can't recruit volunteers. Yeah. Well, if you'll start with your teens, groom them, help them, train them, you'll actually find that they experience Jesus in their own way better than they necessarily were without serving.
Yeah, I mean, as a student ministry guy, we, just continually harp on that it's not about giving information, it's about creating experiences. I mean, it's both, yes, give information, but create experiences. And special needs ministry is such a, my neighbors, for example, they work at a local gym, cheerleading, tumbling. I don't know what they do in that place, but they have a special needs event there, and my neighbors, 8th grade, junior, freshman, love helping out with special needs. My neighbor, he's an 8th grade guy, soccer player guy, but he has a passion for special needs. And it's not even ministry, it's just for him. It's his local, to help and to see a kid light up in a way that it gives him a sense of purpose, like you're saying. And
you find a lot of the kids, and Meaghan's ministry is just full of kids who come in and want to serve and get plugged in. But you find a lot of them will choose their college major after they've served in a special needs ministry in their church. I don't think there's ever been a church I haven't heard of this happening in. That one of the teens will leave their service and end up choosing a college and choosing a major based on their service in the special needs ministry.
That's very cool. And so if for somebody that's a youth pastor or children's ministry, and you're thinking, I'm not in special needs ministry, I think the thing that you guys are encouraging people towards is it's a church issue, not a ministry isolated issue. And that's very cool that Chuck brings you up on stage and wants the whole church to get behind the vision of what you guys are doing. Because
we're everywhere. We are not isolated in one classroom. We have kids all across the board. And if it's cold outside, we are taking nature walks through the building. So we are never hidden, and we're never asked to be hidden. And I think that's a big thing in a church. They never said, why don't y'all stay in your room? That needs to stay over here. No, we are just as much a part of the body of believers as anyone else. And I think that just speaks volumes again to the families and to the volunteers because they see that they're invested in something that the church stands behind completely.
Well, that's very cool. Well, thank you both so much for coming. I'm going to give this away.
Cool.
I'm going to give it to Sonny Williams.
Yay!
Sonny Williams.
Hey, Sonny.
I don't know
Yay,
who.
Sonny.
Oh, sorry,
Thanks for your
Sonny Miller. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Sonny Williams is on our staff. Sonny Miller, congratulations, you win this, and thanks for your encouragement to Amy and to Meaghan. Thank you for your time.
Yay,
This was
thanks for including us.
inspiring for me, and
Thanks
I
for
think
spotlighting special needs ministry. We appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Well, thanks for your heart, and just it's amazing. So
Thanks.
thank you. Amy Fenton-Lee and Meaghan, Inclusive Church. Check these.
TheInclusiveChurch.com. We have pictures of her ministry up on the blog. All of her rooms. TheInclusiveChurch.com has 50 pictures of her ministry.
Awesome. Check that out. TheInclusiveChurch.com, Amy Fenton-Lee. We're about to go to commercial. Congratulations, Sonny.